Welcome back to the Top 6 show. We are speaking Rodrygo, Garnacho, Chelsea, United, new bids for Mbeumo, Liverpool's fantastic summer. Could it be about to get better? What I've just seen has made me feel a bit sick in my mouth. A bit of sick. The throat is burning because I had to swallow it. We're going to be delving into all of that, so make sure like buttons are hit. Make sure you are subscribing. Tom Little is back with us again. Henry Wright is joining us soon. But man like Roy the Boy, it's been a while. Big Chelsea fan Roy is back on the show with us after about a year away. Busy working, busy living his life. And Kojo is back with us, a.k.a. Little Black Book. By the way, I've been watching some of your content about dating and relationships, and beautifully not shrouded, that makes it look like you're covering up, beautifully encompassed with good Christian values, which I like to see, but great content as well. But making his debut on the Top 6 show tonight is Kojo. Welcome to the show. And Roy, great to have you back. And Kojo, brilliant to have you here.
Thank you very much. Happy to be back in these shores after a very long time.
Yeah, it's been a while. Look, I know you said as well backstage, my job's been hard, etc. You did start ducking out when Chelsea was struggling, really. Like that's what we know it is. Chelsea.
No, hold on.
a little bit.
I think that's a bit off the mark because we were worse under Pochettino, where I appeared more than we were under Maresca. So let's not try and hate when we're shit, I go missing kind of guy.
I think you went missing, and then listen. Roy is maybe the most intelligent person I've ever met, especially when it comes to maths, right? He's great at calculating. You could literally do this with Roy, and it's a party trick. But you turn around and go 327 times 4 times 5, he'll just kind of know it. Like,
yeah, it's 1,635.
Yeah, he knows it that quickly. Like, it's ridiculous. He's a magician. If you say 2, you do subtraction as well, right? Like crazy stuff.
Not bad with it.
Yeah, so if you do like 2,592 minus 1,337,
that is what, 2,192?
For 2,592.
Oh, 1,255.
Yeah, he gets it that quickly. So what I mean by this, by the way, he did that to us when we were out in the pub once, and I was like, I've got to go around and get people with it. It was amazing, right? It's an amazing party trick. He's so good at I think he was like, all right, I'll duck out because it's so bad on the potch. But then when it started getting good, he's like, I can't just rush back as it's bait. So he's waiting. That's what he's done. He's waiting. I know you, bruv. I know you. But look, we're gonna have a great show tonight. Lots to go through, lots to talk about. And I wanted to start really with part of Manchester United, because we spoke about it on Straight Facts this morning, but it's still rearing its head. And I really wanted to get some neutral and rival perspectives on Alejandro Garnacho wearing the Aston Villa shirt with Rashford's name on the back. A lot of United fans angry, a lot of United fans fuming that, he's trying to drive his value down. Yes, the club want to move him on. Amorim wants to move him on, but they think he's going about it in a disrespectful way. Thoughts?
I personally think we're doing too much. Listen, I know we're in the social media age, innit? So obviously young men, sometimes I don't really think about the repercussions of doing something, right? I think Garnacho does want out of the club, right? And it's a bit like when a team wants you out, right? They'll do whatever they want to get you out. You know what I'm saying to you? And it's only fair and right if they want to do that. If they want to stall your contract, they want to put you in the reserves, it's not a problem. When you retaliate, suddenly we look at the player like an absolute enemy. You know what I mean? Like, if the guy wants out, let's help the brother move out. Just not to Chelsea, but help the brother move out. You know what I mean? Make it smooth, make it easy. You know what I mean? So I do understand the being a fan and seeing that, how that would be interpreted as being, like a disrespect, right? And so I'm not going to put that in. I'm not a Man United fan, I'm a Chelsea fan, so I understand that. But for me personally, I just think to myself, like, when you have a little bit of banter, I thought sometimes we end up killing people's personality on the internet just because they do something like this. If this was me, I'd be like, listen, let's help him go. He wants to be back at Aston Villa. Let's help him go. You know what I mean? Help him on his way. That's what I would say first and foremost. I don't go too deep just yet.
It's not the best of looks, is it? One could argue it's a rat move to try and weaken your own club's stance. I think what sort of gets lost nowadays in this modern era of social media is a lot of people are now become fans of players rather than fans of clubs, it feels like, and they'll defend players a lot more. For me, my mindset's always been I'm a fan of Liverpool, so I will back the club. If I was to put this into a United situation, Manchester United need to move Garnacho on. He's causing a lot of problems inside the dressing room. There's been a lot of drama throughout the season from his family posting stuff on social media and constantly putting themselves in the media spotlight when United haven't needed it. He doesn't want to be there, so I back the club's decision to move him on. But the club also needs to get as much money as they can for him, especially United in this situation where they did finish 15th, let's not forget. So they don't necessarily have European money coming in next year. The sale of a academy graduate, whatever it is, under PSR means a lot for the financial situation. So to see that player who has been disrespectful all season with the way he's handled it continue to be disrespectful in the summer, when it's not like United are trying to stand in his way and block a move. It's just other clubs aren't doing the business yet because they have no desire to at this point. They're going to wait for whatever reason. It can. I can see why there's a lot of anger directed towards Garnacho in that point of view, because it is very disrespectful, and it's just another one in the line of things that he's done this year that have left a sour taste in United fans' mouths. At the end of the day, Manchester United need the money off Garnacho. They do. It's either him or Mainu that would make the most money because of the whole book value and being an academy player. So to see him do all this stuff and try to make out that he's the poor, he's getting the short end of the stick here. He's not getting what he wanted. He's being forced out. He's being this. I'm going to stand by Rashford, who went through something similar. And it's the same. I can see why United fans are quite angry and feel quite hard done by with the way he's handling it, because like you told me backstage, if him and Rashford aren't even mates, it's not even like he's doing it because Rashford was all right at Villa, weren't he? Someone's went out, bought an Aston Villa shirt with Rashford on it, and went, you know what? Let's do this. Might make Villa want us. Might force through a move. That's disrespectful to the football club. And the way I see it, if you're a football fan or if you're a United fan, you're a fan of the club, not Garnacho. Better players have been at United. Better players have left United than Garnacho. So I don't see why there'd be such a vehement defence of him and the way he's handled the situation, because you can handle it with a lot more class. And I'm not saying that Amarim's faultless in the way he dealt with it, but at the end of the day, it's the football club's decision, and Garnacho didn't give himself much of a choice in the way he's handled it throughout the season, getting to this result.
Go on, Roy.
I think more United fans should be angrier at the effect this has on Garnacho's value more than the action itself, personally, because if from the United fans I know and that I've interacted with, the ratings for Garnacho aren't particularly high. They don't think he's some world-class player who's untouchable and you can't afford to lose. This is someone who is a good player, has good things about him, has not so good things about him, also has a social media presence which can be a bit troublesome in terms of sort of bad PR and attracting the wrong sort of attention. So if you look at this situation, I get why United fans are angry, because he's worn the shirt of a club he was linked to with a player who also left. But if I was a United fan, and I don't rate him particularly highly, hence I don't want him at Chelsea, but if I was a United fan, I'll be thinking, what is he doing? Like, he's basically getting on his knees and begging for a move at this point, which is already what Amarim told him. So I think anger should be directed at the potential effect on his transfer value rather than the action itself. Because also, I know, like, we're all football fans. We're all guilty of reading way too much into things at times, and we're not part of these people's social bubbles. And it could just be a case of, like, that's just his boy. He could have just liked the kit and got Rashford on the back. Like, I'm not saying that's true and I'm not saying that's false, but we can often be guilty of reading too much into things because we are not, like, in the depths of the industry like these professional footballers are. So if I was a United fan, I would personally be thinking, you know what? I don't particularly rate him. We're going to sell him anyway. Amarim doesn't like him, but he can't be doing this because that could just knock a 10 million off. And like Tom was saying, in the situation United are in, they need to get as much money as they can for him.
Absolutely, and the players will want their values to be as low as possible because it gives them more options. And Wayne here says, didn't Amorim and United already hurt his value by making it public they don't want him? United never made it public. Garnacho's team made it public. Garnacho's team sold that story. Garnacho's team were the ones posting the day after the final. So yes, Amorim told him in a private setting at work that he's going to have to find a new club. But Amorim didn't say that in a press conference. The club didn't do a press release and say we don't want him anymore. So look, Amorim is allowed to yield his authority in private without having the expectation of all these players are going to make everything public. This for me though, I'm not angry directly with Garnacho. My anger stems back to the Glazers. This is a Glazer issue, and they're not getting any of the stick for it, which is always the case with Man United fans. We go for the low-hanging fruit. We go for the player who takes some of the accountability. People that don't like Ruben Amorim are going to go after him just because that's an obvious low IQ thing to do. But for me, I look at the Glazers. They've allowed, after over a 12-year, 13-year period, for player power to be planted, to grow, to shoot a stem, to grow roots, to now become absolutely embedded in the fabric of Manchester United Football Club. And it's going to take a long time to wean that out. It's going to be very, very, we're like halfway through season 1 of The Last of Us right now. That fungus is deep. It's going to take a long time to get rid of it, if ever. Do you know what I mean? And actually, it could have all been cured, really, if my guy would have let the girl get all slit up at the end of season 1, but he didn't do it. And that's what we're going through now. We actually have to be cruel to be kind to the football club, and players that don't behave right, don't play right, are not consistent enough, whatever the reasoning may be, we have to move them on. As fans, we've got to stop siding with the players and see the wood for the trees. I don't like what he's done. I'm not going to give him any abuse over it because I just don't see how that helps the situation in any capacity. But from my point of view, it's another stain really on the football club. We've got a few super chats here. First one says, hit the like button. Thank you very much, Luke, for encouraging us to do that. Aztec Guna super chatted but didn't say anything, but I want to thank you for that. Same as FIFA Don super chatting, not saying anything, but thank you very much indeed. I appreciate you donating to us here. Dorgu, Amash, Ugarte did the same. So this is the thing, Jacob. Yes, they did. I think Harry Amas has been training and he's seen a Real Madrid shirt. Dorgu had a Roma shirt on and Ugarte had a Flamengo shirt on. The difference is they're not linked to going to that football club, and they haven't displayed the name of a player on the back who is also sort of being ostracized by the new head coach because he wants them gone and he wants better players to be purchased. We have to be, this is where it's either completely innocent what Garnacho done and people have misread it. You can believe that. I don't. I think he's smart enough to understand that what he's going to do is create a wave. What he's going to do is create a noise. If Garnacho hadn't done that, we can all see the message that he's sending, which is a little bit of an up yours, in my personal opinion. The other guy just had a football shirt on, and nobody cares about that. At the end of the day, we've all got players at our clubs that, people don't necessarily want to see at the club anymore. But if they're making it difficult to leave, if they're causing problems, if they're an issue, and then they start doing things like this, it upsets fans. And no one should be, by the way, I'm quoting Jamie Carragher. Especially Liverpool fans, I don't want to see any of you tell us how we should feel, because that's the new standard. That's the new standard that you guys set. And I'm going to hold every Liverpool fan on planet Earth accountable to that now forever. You are not allowed to tell other fans how they feel because you set the precedent of saying that, especially Jamie. I bet he's clucking to give an opinion on this, but he knows if he does, he's going to get cooked. So for me, it's not about the wearing of the other. I'm not a fan of it, by the way. I think when you're a pro footballer and you sign for a club, and everything, you should, other than your nation shirt, you shouldn't touch another club's kit. But we live in a world now where fans wear the kits of other clubs, which I still find to be a shocking, deceitful betrayal. My daughter will never be allowed to be with a boy or a man who does that. I will not allow that in my house in any capacity at all, because that tells me he's a cheat. That tells me he'll hurt her. He'll hurt her. That, and if he's playing, I can't have it. I
assume you only own United and England kits, then, Terry.
Of course.
So you don't have a single other kit.
I don't have the only time I wore another club's kit has been in these two scenarios. So when you went as a kid, we went on like different trials and stuff. So like, I went on trials for this thing. It wasn't actually at West Ham, but it was like a precursor, and everyone was given West Ham kits to wear. That's you turn up, they gave different colors, and I was like 8 years old, right? The only other time, my family didn't have a lot of money growing up, and it was a day at school where you had to wear a football shirt, and I didn't have a Man United shirt, and I didn't want to not wear one, so my brother gave me one of his Leyton Orient shirts. So that's the only two times I've done it.
Wow.
And again, I was 10 years old, and I was like, I remember bawling my eyes out. I was like, if I go to school with no shirt, I'm gonna get called. I don't know, whatever you used to get called back then. Like, it's some horrible name for being poor, because we were really poor, my family growing up. So my brother said, well, wear this one. And it was too big for me and everything, but I had a football shirt on. But that's it. No, I don't do it. Do you know what it is for me? I know some people go, oh, but it's PSG, they're not my rival. Every time you buy a shirt of another football club, you are financially supporting their endeavors. So if you're a Chelsea fan, you wear a PSG shirt, you are giving a European rival money to continue signing players to make them better than you. For me, I won't do it. It's not even about the cheating thing. It's I won't do anything financially directly to help any other club. I just won't do it. I can't do it. It feels weird to me. Yeah, that's all it is. It's I mean, it's
I won't join you, but I respect it.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say.
And the thing is, I don't really judge other people that do it. Again, it's one of those things. Like when I was a kid, another thing I never did was I never tried smoking. Nothing to do with getting lung cancer. It was, as a young boy, especially going to school, you wanted to smell as good as possible, right? For the ladies. I was like, why would I do something that makes you stink? That was my logic as a kid. It was like, it ain't cool to stink, bruv. You get the kid that walks in class who's been outside the school smoking. I was like, you stink. That's the only reason I never tried it. I didn't want to stink of cigarettes. That was it. So yeah, my logic's always different to other people's. But yeah, don't wear other people's kits. But aside from that, Garnacho shouldn't be. We digress massively. Garnacho shouldn't be doing this, in my personal opinion. Rashford and Garnacho swapped jerseys. What's wrong here? Well, they couldn't have done that because Rashford couldn't play against Manchester United when they played Aston Villa. One, he was out injured and wasn't at the game. Two, he wouldn't have been able to play anyway because he was on loan. So they couldn't have swapped shirts at that game. They wouldn't have even wasted the money printing a Rashford shirt for that football match, my friend. I think what doesn't help is that United developed him so quickly, which gave him an ego where you look at someone like Elliott, they developed him slowly and matured a lot better at his age. Yeah, which was saying a lot because the things that Harvey Elliott was doing when he was 15, 16 were and his mother were crazy. But again, a well-run club kept the players' feet on the grounds. I think Pogba was seen in Miami wearing a Madrid kit. I had to wear a United kit because I lost a bet. Again, wearing another kit, that's also acceptable. If you lose a bet, I think I had to put a Liverpool kit on once. I lost a bet. Again, that's very different to going out and buying another club's football shirt and wearing it. Like a different scenario. We made Colleen do it. Remember Colleen? We made her wear a Spurs shirt final day of the season in the studio. Yeah. We've done those things. Pogba did. I think Pogba got stick for that as well because I don't think you should be doing it. But again, Pogba was getting stick because he was consistently linked with a move away. So it was seen as disrespectful.
He wasn't ostracized though. He was just so good that Madrid wanted him.
Yeah,
and that's probably the difference.
Yeah. There's a little bit of that, but it still shouldn't be doing it in my personal view. But that's just me. What we now do on the Top 6 show, we do a question throughout the different subjects, which is called fiction or football. Fiction means nonsense, won't happen. Football means yes, I think so. This is my fiction or football question on this subject. It's this. So fiction or football, and I'll go to Roy first. Garnacho leaving Manchester United will improve the team and the dressing room.
I think I'd call it football because I think based on what we know, and we don't know everything. We don't know everything, so we can only go based on what we hear, what we read, what we see, what we're told, blah blah blah. But he does seem to have a negative, and I don't like judging people like this, but from what we know, his impact on the dressing room isn't in the most positive light. In terms of his social media presence, his brother's social media presence. And then in terms of the team as well, I think the position that he would have played, Cunha's now playing in. And I think Cunha is probably much better suited to that position than Garnacho is. I think he can score as many goals and he can be more of a team player. So I think on the pitch, I think United do improve. And I think they've already improved just by bringing in Cunha. And then off the pitch, I think just not having that potential headache sort of lurking around whenever he's part of the team, I think it comes to be football for me.
I think it's the most obvious football going. He doesn't start anyway before they had Cunha and Mbeumo. So now he'd be even further down the pecking order for a manager that doesn't want him. And him in the dressing room, we already saw how he throws his toys out the pram when he doesn't get his own way, when he doesn't start a final. So I can only imagine how not having that drama in the dressing room makes it better. So on the pitch, he wasn't playing anyway. So buying better players means you're going to get better because you don't have to use him. Let's be honest, they can't get worse. You can't get worse because he's not there, because you weren't using him when he was there. And in terms of the atmosphere of the dressing room, he clearly just throws his toys out the pram when he doesn't get what he wants. When he, the manager made the decision to not play in the final, and then he has to carry on. He has, that's not positive for the dressing room. So getting rid of that ego, getting rid of that attitude can only be a positive. So I think it's one of the most obvious footballers you've got coming.
What do you think, Kojo? Do you think that United could regret this decision?
I mean, there's not many clubs that regret selling players, let's be honest, right? There's not many clubs that a whole host of players. You have one or two that usually you regret, but not a whole host of players, right? I want to say football. You know what I mean? I want to say football because by what we are judging, by what we've seen of his attitude, it never helps. I do think it's a bit of fiction, though, in the sense of when you do play football, sometimes you do need someone that's got a bit of an ego, right? And someone who's willing to take risks in that team. Right now, I'm looking at a Man United team, and when we played against Man United as a Chelsea player, right, it was Garnacho that I was seeing was him and Ahmad pretty much, but and Garnacho as well, right, that were doing the work. When I say the work, as in being able to kind of disseminate the defense and actually cause issues. I don't know if removing Garnacho solves the issue, which has been going on long before Garnacho got there, right? The dressing room has been at disarray for a little bit of a while before this, right? It was before Amarin. It was before you guys had Gyökeres, that same thing. You've had it for the last decade. It almost feels like it's been a decade or so of just nonsense that's been happening. So I don't know if removing him actually solves your dressing room issues. I think you've said it before. This is a top-down issue. The dressing room is the last place. If the top down is also a mess and a disarray and it's not organized, it usually feeds into the base level, which is the organizational level, right? And the operational level. So I don't think removing him really solves that issue. If I'm really honest, I don't think so.
Do you know what? I think you've all spoken a lot of sense. For me, I don't think him leaving completely fixes this, because I agree. I've never felt there was one individual who was the main problem. But I think it's a combination of players plus setting that standard. One of the reasons I've said that Arsenal should sell Martinelli, in my opinion, is because I think it sends a message to the Sakas, the Rices, the Salibas of shit. You have a bad year or two, you're gone here. I think it would actually motivate and be a kick up the backside that people need. We need a little bit of that. We need players to see that they can't, because there must be this feeling in the dressing room of some players that have been maybe through the academy and into the first team that like, every time Rashford or every time Pogba or now Garnacho, every time they get dropped or the manager criticizes them or they don't get to play a certain game or they're taken off early, they run straight out to the media and leak things or say they want to leave. And all the club has actually done for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years is pat them on the head, say sorry, sack the manager and bring somebody else in that the players control. That becomes learnt behavior. I think we need to get it to this is why it's not about me being on Amarim's side, because I don't think this is about Amarim. This is about the club. It's about protecting the role of head coach or of manager and ensuring that unless he's doing something completely out of order, making Garnacho clean the toilets with his toothbrush, making Garnacho bring in his girlfriend's panties for him to sniff. I'm talking real seriously bad things. The head coach should be telling the players what to do. And there is almost no professional reason why those players should be able to say no. Because the one thing I stand on is it doesn't matter, Roy, if you go into work tomorrow and your boss is unprofessional with you. It doesn't give you a right to do a bad job with the client's work, because that's not the client's fault that your boss is a douchebag. That's about you being professional and then handling that situation as a grown-up, and you would do that, and most normal people would. So I'm also at a point where I will blame the Glazers, and we need to fix things internally. But I also can't ignore what grown men are also doing. And I see a lot of people online do this. I'd do the same if my boss treated me like that. Yeah, but that's why you're still in a minimum wage job or you don't work and you don't have anything in your life, because that's your attitude. That's why you're struggling, because you view things through that lens. Grown-ups, adults, I've got children to feed and a mortgage to pay. I can't just go, yeah, I ain't going to work now because my boss told me off. I'm going to lose my job, and then who's going to pay my bills? Like, can't live life like that. It's honestly, you're talking like children. So, yeah, I think football as well, but there is a little bit of fiction in there if people think just getting rid of Garnacho fixes everything. Some more comments here have come through. Sorry, Coach, I'll come to you in a second, mate. This says, move Sancho, Rashford, and Garnacho, better days. Yeah, moving on all three of them would be so important to the club that we really would. And what's mad is Anthony fits into that category financially. The one thing Anthony has never really been is a problem person, as in he isn't causing any issues, quite quiet in the media. And I've got to respect
He's just a problem on the pitch. He's not a problem in the dressing room. Just
massive
on the pitch, he's a problem.
Yeah, no doubt. Terry is right. The manager is always king. I back Ten Hag signings and decisions to not play at Ahmad, etc. And now I back Amorim in 15th and 4 EPL wins in 2025. See, obviously, I can sense the sarcasm in what you're saying here, but that isn't what I meant. It's not the manager; it's the position that they hold. So, for instance, you can't pick and choose in life because it's part of the slippery slope. If you start going right, we'll let manager A have the respect of the dressing room. So the players disrespect him, we'll discipline the players. But if that manager leaves and a new guy comes in, he's struggling, and you go, this time round, we'll let the standards drop and we'll let the players run the show. Do you think those players are going to willingly give back that power the next time a manager comes in? Life doesn't work like that in reality. At the end of the day, it's like if you've got a good teacher, we'll make sure those pupils do what they're meant to do. The teacher's not very good, we'll let the kids run riot. That's not how a head teacher would run a school. That's not how a business would operate. So you can't have that notion. You've got to, on these subjects, you've got to drop your emotional feelings about Ruben Amorim, whether it'll work or not, and look at the precedent that you are setting by backing player power for short-termism to hopefully get rid of a manager you dislike. We've done that for the past decade, and look where we've ended up. There is empirical evidence that this behavior and backing the players damages the club. That's why I'm against it. It's not about Garnacho or Ruben Amorim personally. It's about the scenario at a larger scale, Kevin. I hope that makes sense. Isn't going to an away game also supporting the rival team? Look, if you're going to be overly scrupulous, if you're going to be a little bit pedantic, then yes, it is. But that isn't what I mean. You are going, the reason away fans go to away games isn't to give money to the rival club. It's to create the best atmosphere possible for your football team to win, which in turn generates more of an income for them, helps them win more trophies. So yes, if you're going to be over scrupulous, if you're going to be a little bit,
how pedantic could you get though? Could we say like, oh, you shouldn't be buying your TV subscription because yes, whilst your club gets it, 19 other clubs are getting a bigger share of that. So you shouldn't really be trying to watch your games legally.
That's the definition of a straw man argument, isn't it? That's because everyone knows the point I'm making. Buying a shirt is directly helping the club. You're not doing something that maybe you should change it from directly to directly and solely helping a rival club, because when you buy an away ticket, you're not solely. But I got to see
sure that you look at all your rival clubs and their sponsorship, so you never buy anything or never associate with anything.
But
I'm never going to fly Emirates again. I don't want to fund Arsenal.
No, you can't miss that.
I'm mad. I do that as best I can in life. I do that. And when I lived in Manchester, I used to sell phones. Man City fans would not buy Vodafone contracts. They would not touch it for love nor money. I was still working at Phones for You when I moved back to London. Arsenal fans would not touch Samsungs. In the shop I was in, no, Chelsea. So I've seen that. There are people that are that tribal. I'm a little bit like it. Like for me, I remember asking my dad for a new, do you remember the video and TV things that were combined? The video cassette player was in the TV built in. I really wanted one because then I used to be able to record films on it in my own room. And like I was saying, special. And I'm like, Dad, don't get me JVC though. It's Arsenal. I wanted Sharp. I really wanted Sharp. They didn't even sponsor United anymore, I don't think. And I still wanted Sharp because of the connection. Yeah, I was really tribal with that sort of stuff, man. Really tribal.
Glad you changed.
I mean, look, before we move on from Garnacho, a lot of the news though, gents, is still stating that Chelsea are favourites to sign him. That's the news, the media. Fabrizio still stands on the 35% chance. The highest percentage chance he gives to any club is still Chelsea. I mean, he could do a job, couldn't he?
No, thanks.
I'm all right, thank you. I'll be honest with you. Listen, I don't think he's a bad player, right? I don't think he's a bad player. I just don't think, as I'll keep
You don't
hearing
think
his
he's a
word, he
good
doesn't
one,
move.
though, do you? You don't think he's
I just
a
don't
good
think he's
player?
great. I don't think he's great. I don't personally think that he adds anything to Chelsea. If they didn't sign Sancho, I don't see why we're signing Garnacho. You know what I mean? Like they're pretty much the same kind of profile of a player right now and on the same kind of level for me. I mean, Sancho's obviously on a little bit more, but other than that, they're the same kind of profile. And so for me personally, that they both have the same kind of attitudes, right? Like for me, looking at Garnacho, I don't think he's a bad player. I just don't think he adds anything to the Chelsea team that will change us into a more dynamic, more dangerous team up front. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Like
agree.
for me, I think he's a good player. I think send him to Aston Villa. I think they'll do wonders at that club. You know what? He'll do so well. Maybe Chelsea might even reconsider. But right now, let's send him to Aston Villa and leave him where he's at. Right? I think Garnacho to Chelsea is one of those stories where it's like I don't know if Chelsea are trying to do this thing where they keep trying to slip in news to kind of undercover do another move elsewhere. But Chelsea, I got some questions for Chelsea people who are doing these transfers. I feel like since our good lady had left the transfer place in Chelsea team, we've been doing some dodgy deals of late. But for me, Garnacho doesn't move the needle. He doesn't add anything to our striking force that we don't already have. I'm gonna leave it there.
Is that, before I go to, is that the fear though, that you have signed maybe some obscure players? You have, I mean, a lot of the, I know there's some contrary, Fabrizio has said you're not going to go back in for Maignan. There are some people closer to Chelsea, more isolated to Chelsea, saying that might not be the case. But is that your fear, though, that you have signed some players that you maybe wouldn't have expected? So there is sort of that lingering chance that Garnacho becomes a Chelsea player.
Yeah, I think with this situation, right? We've done some deals which I think have been so much this youth policy situation. We're playing FIFA in real life, and as much as I love FIFA, and which is now no longer FIFA anymore. When you, I said this when I said to you last time, Terry, as well, that I don't mind signing young players. I don't mind signing potentially good players, but we've got a bunch of good players at this moment, and it just seems like it's a carousel that we're using for profit to try and get these players sold on for PSR and all that kind of things, right? But for me personally, especially that left side where Garnacho is going to potentially play, right? You already have Madueke now trying to play left side. I said you can put Jackson at left side if you need to, right? You've already got Neto who potentially could play at left side, right? I feel like Garnacho doesn't even get to 2 or 3 in that list. So what would be the purpose of buying him? And then it just shows again, I think, our discernment when it comes to buying players. I'm seeing Liverpool and I'm seeing a seriousness. They've signed 2 players and I'm seeing seriousness when it comes to Liverpool. I'm seeing Chelsea and we're looking at a little bit like we're jokers. And we got too much money. And you know that friend that used to have too much money at school that give everybody money? That's how I feel like Chelsea are. And it's like, you're not wise and you're not responsible. So that's why I'm looking at the Garnacho thing. Like, I hope you guys are joking and playing around and trying to put that news out so that you can buy other people. I don't even like the Gittins deal. I don't even like the Gittins deal either. I think, again, it doesn't move the needle again. But, hey, that's my personal opinion on it.
As in, we've got. I don't like calling players shit. I think football fans are way too quick to just completely write off and just dismiss players. I don't think Garnacho's shit. I just don't think he's that great personally. I think the only, and this is me really, really scraping the bottom of the barrel here, the only positive that I can see in a Garnacho deal is he's a right-footed left winger, and our only one is Tyreek George. That's the only positive and the only thing that could actually add to our squad, because the way our wingers play, they're out very wide 1v1 and they don't really get much support. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't invest as much as I do into the club. I don't spend the time I do watching Chelsea to see Garnacho on the touchline with, statistically, again, this is not my opinion, this is a statistic, with one of the worst dribble success rates in a system which wouldn't have given him a lot of support, plus not fantastic decision making. It just seems like a car crash waiting to happen. I'd rather put it on someone who suits us more. And I don't even mind if it's a gamble like Gittins. I think Gittins actually has quite a high upside. But with Garnacho, I just feel like there's too much stuff which doesn't suit what we need to warrant giving Manchester United potentially upwards of £50 million, which they would be absolutely desperate for at this time. So for me, Garnacho is a no. I don't think he's a bad player. I think he's an okay player. He's got some good things, he's got some bad things, but for Chelsea, and I'm trying to stick with the top 3 next season of Liverpool, Arsenal, and City as well. So that doesn't help me achieve my goals personally.
You're a better man than me. I won't call players shit. You just described.
No, I
exactly
think we do it too much. Everyone's either great or shit. Everyone's either great or shit with football fans.
He's so bad though.
He's average.
I think he's not great.
The only upside you could give him is he's right-footed. That was his only positive as a footballer to join Chelsea. Not his dribbling. You said that.
No, and he's willing to take shots as well. He's greedy, so he takes a lot of shots. Like that's not bad.
Is that a positive?
I mean, it can be if the others don't like taking shots, and someone has to. So
yeah, but I'd rather someone that's taking the shots score them. He doesn't necessarily score at this very high rate. So far, the advantages are he's greedy and he's right-footed. That to me isn't the sign of someone who's, a great player who these clubs should be desperate to get over the line with. The fact of the matter is, Garnacho has not developed the way he was expected to 2 years ago. That's fine. I can understand why no top club really wants to go near him for the price Manchester United are asking for, because you have to do a lot of work on a player who has an ego far beyond what his ability is. He believes he is better than he is, and players like that are very hard to work with. When we're talking about the options that Chelsea are going to have for the left wing, I still believe from the outside looking in that Chelsea are not buying for the short term. Chelsea are buying for players who will be good in 2 years' time. So they have this wonderful team that's been together for 3 years minimum all together, grown up, and then they're all ready for a 3 years period where they can go win everything. Garnacho in 2 years' time will not be good enough, because I don't think Chelsea is the environment to get the problems in his game out. If anything, I think the lack of threat to his position at Chelsea would just amplify it, because Madueke, you got to bear in mind, as it stands, I don't know who else Chelsea might buy. There might be Garnacho and Bino Gittins, in which case a bit different. But as it stands, it's Garnacho on the left, and his other options, his competition is Madueke out of position or Pedro Neto out of position, or maybe we'll move, a left back up there, or maybe Jackson could be moved. He's got no direct threat, and even the ones that will be coming in, the youngsters, I've not necessarily seen. You might correct me if I'm wrong. There's no young left winger who you've got out on loan in Brazil, or you've got out on loan to Strasbourg. I know Esteval's coming, but he's off the right, so that's more of a threat to a Neto or a Madueke. So right now, if you brought in Garnacho, his competition would be players already playing in different positions. That's not going to help him have a desire to work hard, because if anything, his position feels secure. He feels safe in knowing that I'll probably play because I'm the only natural left winger that they've got. That's why I think that a player like a Bino Gittins or a player of that ilk, these players who might, they're at a similar level ability-wise, but I think they've got higher potential and a drive to figure that out at Chelsea, and a drive to do all the work to get that figured out. I think that's a more natural fit for Chelsea's plan than what Garnacho is. Garnacho needs to go and work under a manager who takes no shit. Whether that's an Emery, whether that's a whoever, someone who will be authoritarian to him and tell him, no, you're not Ronaldo. You are Garnacho. You cannot dribble very well. Your shooting is wayward and you shoot too much. And you are greedy to a fault. We need to fix those areas of your game to help you realize the potential that you had 2 years ago. If his next manager, I feel like saying this, if his next manager isn't someone who can work on that basis and has that level of mindset, Garnacho runs a real risk of throwing away the potential that he's got, because there is the potential there in him as a footballer. But right now, he has the mindset that he's beyond what he is, and he deserves more than what he's got, and he deserves to be more than where he will prospectively be. And I think that for a player of the quality and the potential that he had shown beforehand, that needs to be fixed. The feet need to be put back on the ground.
I agree.
Listen, some really good points there. Viewers, give us your opinions and thoughts on that. I want to thank Ty Cunningham, who's gifted out 15 free memberships to the Football Terrace community this evening. That's absolutely amazing and very, very generous of you, my friend. So thank you very much indeed, Ty Cunningham. Make sure you're all thanking him for that. You now get the benefits that come with being a TFT member, with access to the group chat. You got to just DM us that and we'll send you through those links. We'll post them again on the community page later as well. There are the Football Terrace chat rooms and live streams, member chat only type things that we're doing as well. So keep your eyes out for all of that. And thank you, Ty, for donating. Yeah, I think I agree with what a lot of you have said. I think he needs a move. I just don't know. I think he'll do well at Chelsea. I think he'll do better at Chelsea than at Man United because of the system. But I almost feel like he needs a little bit less pressure and expectation. And there's a lot of expectation at Chelsea, and I think he'll thrive. I think Aston Villa just feels like maybe like the best place for him. And he's not on a lot of money. That's the only thing. Another thing that fits with Chelsea, though, he's only on 50k a week, which means you could probably get him for an 80 or 100k a week, 8-year contract, and he'd bite your hand off because it's a lot more than he's earning. It's not like he's one of our players on 250k a week who doesn't want to. Because again, I still think Sancho was mad to turn you down. I know he wants that money, and that honestly, look, I respect it to a degree. Man United have promised him that money, and he wants to earn it. I'm not begrudging him that. I do feel for Sancho, though, on a personal level, like me towards him.
He really wanted to come.
But if he really wanted to come, he would have taken the pay. He wanted to come, but he didn't want to lose 100k a week for it's 5 million quid. But he didn't want to come to you for the sake of 5 million quid, which I get. But then this is where I want people to advise him. And maybe he's thinking, listen, man, I'm going Saudi. I might go Saudi in 2 or 3 years and I'll make the money up. I don't care. But for the sake of £5 million for someone who's already a multi-millionaire, I almost feel like you've got an opportunity to be at one of the biggest clubs in the world. Some of the teams looking at him now, yes, Napoli are there and Juve, but he might end up at Fenerbahce. And I'm not saying anything negative about Fenerbahce, but you can't compare that to being at Chelsea. I don't think you could even compare being at Napoli and Juve in 2025 to being at Chelsea in terms of the size of the league, the eyes on you, the potential of winning. I love what Scott McTominay did last year. The fact that he's able to be the best player in Serie A, I think tells you that the standard isn't what it used to be. And I just feel like there's so much. Maybe I'm being disrespectful. I don't know. There's something about it where I'm like, oh, you could have done something there, man.
But no, I get what you're saying. I think that feeds into it feeds into what people's objectives are when they play football. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, I agree with what you're saying. If I love, especially if you told me you love Chelsea, right? I'm gonna take that hit. If I love Chelsea, I'm gonna take that hit. I still make good money. I take that hit and I play for my team that I love. You know what I mean? I love Chelsea. I love football. But if you don't love football like that, you're not in love with it. Sometimes it's a lot of these guys, it's a job for them. So it's like they're just thinking about the money aspect. Yeah, that's why someone's going to go to Saudi. You know what I mean? But if you're but I would agree with you. I think they should. I think you should take that little cut, play for Chelsea, did it a year or two and see how it goes.
Yeah. But and where I could be wrong is I am looking at this as someone that wishes he was good enough to be a pro footballer. So I am thinking about it footballing wise. He may have looked at it. Look, Sancho might have done stuff and gone, you know what? I've won this, I've won that, I've won a few trophies. I played at United, I played at Dortmund, played in Champions League finals. He may feel a little bit fulfilled. And that's not for me to say he's wrong for feeling that way and go, actually, I'm gonna, I still think there's so much more he could do. And I think Chelsea was an opportunity for him. And he's obviously said no. I also hope that the next deal he gets, and it's weighing it up over a longer period. I hope that when his contract ends with Man United next summer and he goes from earning 250k a week, that the best offer that he gets isn't less than what Chelsea offered him. Because then over the next 3 years, he'll actually earn less than staying at Man United. And again, I don't know who's advising him. Do you know what I'm saying? Sometimes, yes, you might take a smaller hit in the short term, but what are people offering you? We've seen a lot of players as well. Zaha, one of them. Doesn't always work out when you go to places like Turkey. Doesn't always work out for you. Where Chelsea would have done. It's like with Dortmund and going back to Germany. I think that'd be a brilliant place for him. But we'll see what happens with man like Sancho.
I just think Sancho doesn't want to play in the Premier League. I just think he's. I don't know whether it's the media or whether it's just the way the game's played in England. I don't think he's ever suited the Premier League. I don't think I've ever watched Sancho in the Premier League for a consistent period of time. When that's the Sancho at Dortmund. I don't think he's ever adapted.
Maybe that could certainly be it. Maybe there's a part of him that thinks, I want to be here. I love Chelsea. It's not even the money, but I'm already seeing, like you saw Chelsea fans go from the beginning of the season, like, yes, to why are you always passing the ball? Take someone on. You had another year of that, and it could amplify.
But why was he doing that? That's the problem with Sancho. I got frustrated. I was like, why did you change that? You were doing so well. What? And so again, this comes back down to also coaching outside of coaching. What I mean by this is a mental aspect, right? Terry, I've heard you speak about this a lot. The mental aspect is a massive thing, right? When you're playing football, and so when you first come, it's almost like he's got a new girlfriend. He's treating her lovely. He's treating her right. He shows up like a brilliant man. Halfway through the relationship, the girl's like, where did you go? I don't know. I'm not really, and that's what I feel like with Sancho, it happens. And I think that's a mentality thing, right? Where when your mentality drops to a place and you get comfortable and you don't want to stretch and expand your mind. And that's where the best players actually come in. So I was looking at Sancho like, come on, he's doing amazing the first few weeks. And then it's like his performance starts to drop. And that's where sometimes I think some players probably invest in a coach outside of a coach. You need a tutor. Start speaking some life into you, bro, so that when you're down in that place, the person can lift you up a little bit and say, hey, Sancho, listen, get back to basics. Get back to you dribbling the ball, getting into a dangerous position and shooting it, right? Because then that's your game. And we saw that in parts, but the consistency was lacking from Sancho. And it's like, bro, you got all that money, I need you to buy a life coach or tutor. Come and call Roy to come and speak to you. Somebody.
If Sancho's in your team, he must be the most frustrating player, because at Dortmund, which is where he got all the hype about him, he was this fantastic technical winger who would constantly drive at his man and look to beat his man and create from a wide area. And in the moments he came to the Premier League, it was like if he couldn't beat his man the first time, his arse went. He went, right, I just don't want to lose the ball.
Do you know
I don't want to give it away.
Do you know what I think some of it is as well, though? Some of it is hard work. There is a part of that, and there's levels to the game. Every pro footballer that's become a pro worked their backsides off to get there to even become a professional football player. But you know the sort of phrase that there's levels within levels. To be a player, and like Mo Salah fits this as an example. Eden Hazard wasn't a good trainer, but in football matches, Eden Hazard would make a run 2, 3, 4, 5 in a game. Could get tackled every time, but the 6th go, he beats a man. People don't realize how hard that is. Strikers that run off the shoulder. Haaland, 1 run, 2 run, 3 run. Haaland's a great point. He does so much hard work that no one notices because the ball don't get played through to him. If he suddenly went, I ain't making that run anymore because it's 80 minutes in, I'm tired, no one's found me, or the defender keeps beating me to the ball. If he stopped working hard at that, he might not get that 85th minute chance to win the game. I think Sancho has a little bit of that where it's like, this ain't working, going to pass that ball to somebody else. Some of that is almost like passing responsibility. Some of that is almost, my legs are tired here. Most of the better performances I've seen him have at Chelsea in the second half of the season and at Man United in his career was when he was coming on fresh as a sub, where he maybe has 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and he'll work really hard. It's can he or does he want to do that in the Prem, which most pros will tell you is the most frenetic top league in Europe in terms of the consistent pace of the game. It is hard work, and it might just be that I prefer La Liga. I prefer Serie A because it's slightly slower tempo, and that suits me better. And that's fair. Like I'm not even saying that's wrong, but it's about finding horses for courses, as people would say. But viewers, give us your opinions, give us your views on that in the comment section below. But what we have right now is a little bit of breaking news. And the breaking news is discussions have taken place between Arsenal and Chelsea over the possible move for Noni Madueke. Currently, the asking price from Chelsea is 50 million English pounds. Arsenal are not currently prepared to pay that. Keep an eye out on this deal. It's one that could progress slightly later in the transfer window. But 50 million pound quoted. Arsenal are looking at him and want him. Negotiations have begun.
I think that's madness. Can't lie to you. And I can't see Arsenal paying that 50 million, to be honest. But then again, they've done some wild things. They bought Havertz. So maybe I should keep quiet. Me personally, like I said, I like Madueke. I actually do like Madueke. I think Madueke needs an arm around his shoulder. I think he needs a little bit more coaching to be more clinical. You know, I think Madueke's problem is always the end product. Is that once he can dribble, he can get past the player. I love the fact he's confident. He's a person that you need to keep pushing someone like Madueke to keep dribbling, because like he can take a man on and he can ghost the man, right? It's always the end product for me when it comes to Madueke. But you know, I hope that Chelsea don't sell him just yet. I think he's got a lot more potential to actually extract from him. And I think he could be a deadly player for Chelsea in coming years. But it's just that last aspect. If you can just get that clinical finish, he goes from just being a bang average player or a young potential player to being a great player in the Premier League. So it's just that last aspect. But hey, look, if Arsenal decide to buy him for 50 million, I probably guarantee Chelsea going to accept it. They're going to accept it and tell him and go. And it's money on the books. And they're going to buy someone else, personally.
If Chelsea get offered 50 million quid from Arsenal for Noni Madueke, you bite their hand off, you run and you say no take-backs. Madueke is a decent footballer. Madueke is limited. I think there's parts of his game which he won't ever get to the top level in. And I think that ultimately, when Chelsea are going to be at their point in time where they're going to be challenging for the top honours, Noni Madueke will not be part of that team. So if you can, this is going to sound cynical, if you can get rid of him and stick him on someone else and make him someone else's problem for 50 million quid, that's a good deal, because I look at it from an Arsenal point of view. What fucking advantage is there to Madueke? Saka, unless he gets a hamstring injury for 3 months, plays pretty much every game. On the left, Madueke is not better than Martinelli and he's not better than Trossard. I'm not saying better footballers, I'm saying in that position, for that role, what Arsenal need that left wing to do. He's not better at that job than those two. And Madueke certainly cannot play up front. So, right now, Arsenal will be spending £50 million on Noni Madueke to back up Saka for the cup games and the 5 league games that he might not play if he's looked after properly and doesn't pick up an injury. For £50 million, Arsenal need to spend that money on a starting left winger who is better than Martinelli and better than Trossard, or a starting number 9 who is better than Havertz, not on a backup right winger where not only is Bukayo Saka very rarely injured, you also have a backup there in Ethan Nwaneri, who has more potential than Madueke does and is younger than Madueke is and offers just something different. So the notion that Arsenal are going to sit there and pay £50 million for Madueke, who is decent, he's a serviceable footballer, but he's not a better left winger than their current options, and he's never going to take the right wing spot for £50 million. Mental to me. If Chelsea get offered that, and you've got Esteban coming in, and you've already got Pedro Neto, you take that and you run, and you can spend that money on the areas where it needs to be spent.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I think 50 million, you've got to take it. And I really do like Noni. I think he's just that bit away from like beginning to realize his potential. And like Tom said, there's stuff, he's never going to be a creative wizard like Di Maria or Neymar or anyone like that, like a proper creative wide player. But he can be a bit like sort of like, he'll never reach levels of Mo Salah's goal scoring, but a winger who can actually cut in and score goals. A bit like Jared Bowen, where like he's not some world-class player, but he can consistently give you a good amount of goals every season. But if you get 50 million for that, when we've got a player who I personally believe is much more talented than Esteban coming in, and then we've got Pedro Neto and Cole Palmer can play on the right-hand side too. £50 million when we've got positions we need to upgrade, like our left winger spot, for example. For me, I think it's a no-brainer.
Look, I would say this. First and foremost, Arsenal are not offering 50 million. That's what Chelsea have quoted, and Arsenal have said that that's far too much, which they're absolutely right on. He's not worth 50 million. We're going to get onto the Rodrygo story in a moment, but some conversations have come out from Spain today saying 77 million for Rodrygo. And if Rodrygo is 77 million, Madueke can't be 50 million, in my personal opinion. I do think this is one to watch, though, as the window moves on. And I don't think, again, people always go for the negative with Arsenal, go, oh my God, they need a much better left winger than this. This is obvious what they're looking at Madueke for. This is the alternative to Mbeumo. This is someone to come in and be a backup to Bukayo Saka. And if they can get him for a decent price, say 35 million, which would still be a slight profit for Chelsea. I think you pay 35 million euros for him. I don't think it's a bad backup option for someone like Bukayo Saka. I think Saka is better than him, no doubt. But they were never going to get Mbeumo to play second fiddle at his age to Bukayo Saka, not after the season that he's had. But I think there's a way of convincing Madueke to do that, especially if Chelsea say, thank you, good night, God bless. You know, we want to move on. But it's got to be the right price. It's a bit like United looking at Emi Martinez. I think it's a massive upgrade on what we've got, but don't go and spend £40 million. That's too much money. You're not going to get value for money on that. So Arsenal have got to try and drive that price down. Let's see what happens later in the window. I think it would also suggest if Chelsea are looking to do it, you guys are looking for more than one wide player. So Gittins might come in, but I think you're going to look for more than one. I know Aston Villa's coming in as a young player, but there are links. I mean, this is what could happen though. Garnacho could come in with Gittins, and then Madueke could join Arsenal. I would do that with Chelsea, but yeah, I don't think it's a bad deal for Arsenal as a backup to Bukayo Saka. They don't really have anybody. I think, again, with Noni, I always think he looks more dangerous when he comes on from the bench. I nearly always think that. I don't think he's as bad as people make out. There have been some people that have overhyped him a little bit as well. Man like Don, I think when he called him the best one-on-one winger in the Premier League or something like that. Statistically, it was right. But I did say, what happens after he beats his man? He's like, yeah, the end product ain't there yet. But yeah, that's why
I think that can be coached though. You know, you mentioned Mo Salah, right? Mo Salah was not as lethal as he was when he was younger. You know what I mean? This is something that Mo Salah has to work on, and that's the difference between the great players and some of the players that are going to be okay. Mo Salah had to work on that quality of finishing. Do you know what I'm saying to you? Like, it takes an art, but it takes skill to do that. It takes hard work. Now, if Madueke is willing to do that work, I can see this brother being a top winger because he's not afraid to take on a man. We talked about Sancho a minute ago. Sancho looks like he's scared to take on somebody. After he gets tackled once, he's like, I ain't doing this again. But with Madueke, it's like, I will go against you again and again and again. And for me, that you can't buy that kind of mindset. And that's something that it just needs an end product in terms of get your head up, look for that pass, or that you're going to shoot. Make sure your shooting's on point, right? So, because I obviously I remember the days of Damien Duff and Iron Robin. Like, listen, Iron Robin, quality player, right? Obviously, when he left Chelsea, he was even more clinical, right? But Damien Duff with him and Robin on the wings, the quality of what they brought us, because they also had a great striker in the middle. So sometimes we struggle too, because I said this already, when Jackson's playing striking and he's not finishing chances, it makes everybody look worse. So it's like you're struggling even in that area. So I just think to myself, I think Chelsea needs to bank on him a little bit. Just give him a year or two more. I think this is a brother that can develop. I think get him a coach, get him on the finishing, and let him be lethal. You know what I mean? And this brother can be a dangerous player because he's willing to take on players. And there's not many players like that in the league, if I'm honest with you.
I think, though, with the finishing point, I get what you're saying about Mo Salah, but when Mo Salah was like 19, 20, you could see that he was a decent goal scorer at that point. He'd scored against Tottenham in the Europa League. He'd scored against Chelsea multiple times in the Europa League and the Champions League. In big games, he scored goals, and they weren't like scrappy goals. They were good finishes, composure, all that stuff. When I look at Madueke's goals, there's a couple of decent ones in there. I don't want to lie and say there's no decent ones, but he doesn't have the. When I look at him, he doesn't look like he's got the making of someone who's going to become this guy who can get you 15 goals in a season, 20 goals in a season. I think he's always going to have a limit of what he's going to do through play style and through just natural finishing mechanics that he's got. And I think that if you're going to try and mold him into this all-round threat winger, I feel like you might just be wasting your time with that. I feel like Madueke is one of them wingers who you kind of got to understand the strengths, understand the weaknesses, and just play to them. I don't think he's got the minerals to be this Mo Salah type winger who's going to get you, 15 goals a season, 20 goals a season. I just don't think he's got that instinct. I don't think he's got that natural setup for it.
It could come in. Twisted Bubba here says, Terry, can you name 5 right-sided, like right wingers with in the Prem with end product? Well, obviously you've got like Saka and Salah that you put out there straight away, but then there's Brian Mbeumo as an example. You've got Jard Bowen as another example. Jacob Murphy has developed in the last couple of years a good amount of output for a player in that position. So they're the ones that kind of stand out at the top of my head as an example. You could probably put Alanga this season had end product as an example. So there's that there. Like Noni, and that's where Noni can still develop because Alanga's come on leaps and bounds. Jacob Murphy, I don't know how old Jacob Murphy is. If I'm it doesn't feel like a young kid. Was he 25, 26? He's 30. Fuck me. Yeah. I didn't realize he was that old.
Oh, flipping hell.
His end product has come a little bit later on in life, but I still think there's room for Madueke to grow. It's just one of those deals that Arsenal would have to get done at the right price. Again, if they could do a deal, this is from their perspective, where they got him at 25 million and that's a backup to Saka. I think most Arsenal fans go, that's great. That's great because it's what he is. 30 million is probably the top end. You drop 50, you then start eating into the budget for other players, and it becomes a little bit more problematic. I really thought Jacob Murphy was younger than that, but you know what it is? Everyone looks younger because I'm getting old. That's the problem. All footballers look like kids nowadays to me because I'm an old geezer. But yeah, that's the breaking news on that. Whilst, and I think I had a fictional football question, not based on that. No, we'll stay on Arsenal because we're talking about them now. There has been a report from Miguel Delaney that they've made an offer for Gyökeres as well, and we spoke about that this morning. But in relation to Rodrygo to Arsenal, a lot of talk today and a lot of this is now coming from it's really interesting. The same Madrid press that a few weeks ago were saying he's going to stay, he's going to stay, he's going to stay. Don't even think about it. He's going to stay. And now talking about Madrid are now open to him leaving. I think Marca have said, and I bookmarked so many of these stories today because it felt like there was hundreds of them. This came out just before we went live from a few journalists in Madrid, where they said Real Madrid have set their price to sell Rodrygo at 90 million euros, which is 77 million. There's Marca have said there's a growing uncertainty surrounding his future at the club. There was some more this morning as well that I'm going to scroll down to here. This Sam Reports, who's a UK journalist, said that Arsenal's priority is a striker, and they're also trying to facilitate the deal for Rodrygo. I think it's Graham Bailey spoke about they've done all the groundwork. They spoke to the camp. They're having initial conversations. So there are so many different sources now talking not just about Arsenal's link to Rodrygo, but in Spain saying that there's an uncertainty. He obviously didn't come on the pitch yesterday in their match. 77 million pounds is supposedly the asking price. Should this be, Roy, Arsenal's main focus once they secure their number 9 striker? Is Rodrygo that guy at 77 million pounds?
I feel like Rodrygo's a very, very curious case, in my opinion, because he's clearly a very good player. But the problem is, a lot of the time, he's been playing on the right wing for Real Madrid because they've had Kylian Mbappe or before they had Vinicius Jr. out there. So we've never really seen a consistent run of games in the left wing position. And I know a lot of people say he's a natural left winger, but if you don't play there a lot, then how are we really supposed to judge you as a left wing? As in, it can be your natural position all you want, but I can only judge based on what I've seen. And yeah, I've seen him play left wing a few times. He's had some very good games. He's had some not so good games. And I think this might be a tad unpopular, but I don't know if Rodrygo sometimes gets away with it because of the talent surrounding him. Because at Real Madrid, when you're playing with Kylian Mbappe, when you're playing with Vinicius Jr., when you're playing with Jude Bellingham, those three typically take up the limelight and the responsibility to score and create goals. And Rodrygo he's sort of just got very much of a secondary role where it's like he can chip in with goals, he can chip in with assists, but there's never really been an expectation of him to consistently score week in, week out. Obviously, that's what Madrid want from him. They want that from all of their players, of course. But I feel like coming to Arsenal, and like I said, I'm not saying he's a fraud or he's overrated or anything. It's just I'd be a little bit curious as to, can he perform now? The expectations are a lot more on him, and he doesn't, apart from maybe Bukayo Saka, he doesn't have someone to sort of take the burden off him like he does at Real Madrid. And like I said, I'm not saying he's a bad player. He's obviously a very, very good player. And for £77 million, based on how he is right now and how he could be in a few years' time, then you kind of have to go for it, because realistically, he should probably be closer to 100. So if you can get him for maybe 60, 65 plus add-ons to take it up to the figure that Madrid won, then you kind of have to go for it. Like, personally, I think Arsenal should go for Rafael Leao. That's just my opinion. But Rodrygo, if he's available for that price and the other options aren't really wanting to leave or clubs won't let them go, etc., then you kind of have to take the punt, because you're in a win now position, and Rodrygo could very easily be someone who can help you win now.
I think they need to get Rodri. I think you could argue Rodrygo should be priority number 1, because very hard and not very often that players of that ilk become available. I feel at Real Madrid he's been the victim of, as you said, he's never been the main star, and he's been played on the right a lot when I think he's more naturally a left winger. I think the moments when he's got to play off the left, when Vinicius hasn't been available, you've seen a different Rodrygo. The only real question would be, would he adapt to the Premier League? And I think he'd be fine with that. And I think what that gives Arsenal then is equal threat down the wings, because Arsenal, for the past 2 years, have been too right-hand side dominant. Everything they do goes down the right. If their fullback's attacking, it's Ben White or Timber. If their midfield is attacking, it's Odegaard drifting in on the right. If their wing is attacking, it's Bukayo Saka creating, shooting, whatever. If you add Rodrygo, all of a sudden, there's a threat off the left that teams can't sort of abandon, for lack of a better term. Arsenal can become quite easy to deal with because teams don't rate their left wing options. If Trossard's off the left, teams are quite happy to double up on Saka and sacrifice someone on the right and go, I don't think that, for example, Calafiori, Mikel Merino and Trossard will hurt us as much as Odegaard, Timber and Saka would. So they double up on the right, leave the left. If you put Rodrygo there, teams can't afford to sit there and go, we can sacrifice someone, because Rodrygo can kill you. Rodrygo is a very, very, very good footballer, and he's a very direct footballer. I think he's not the antithesis, but play style wise, it's a nice change from Saka. Saka's a bit more deliberate in the way he wants to go about it. He'll slowly size you up, take you inside or take you outside, whereas Rodrygo is direct in nature. He wants to beat his man, get a shot off, beat his man, get in and around the box, beat his man, make sure that he's in a position to score goals. That's Rodrygo, and I think that's the right balance to have. So if Arsenal can get a player, it's not very often that Real Madrid are forced into selling a player that they don't want to sell. I think in their ideal world, they don't let Rodrygo go because he's a very good footballer. So it's not very often that they are in this position. You need to capitalise when they are. Arsenal should be doing everything they can for Rodrygo, because if they don't, someone else will. Rodrygo, if Real Madrid are going to let him go, if Real Madrid set an asking price, he will leave Real Madrid this summer, because every other top club in Europe who is looking for a left winger or could be looking for a left winger will be all over that deal. Whether it be like Bayern Munich are looking for a left winger. If Arsenal are and ahhing and dillying and dallying, you tell me Bayern Munich won't walk in and go, here's your money, we'll have Rodrygo, and they take him. Because when we're talking about the left winger market at the minute, yes, Leao is potentially available, but there's question marks about his off-the-ball work and his defensive work. There are none of these questions for Rodrygo. Rodrygo is a tier above anyone else on offer. He's one of the ones who you just go, plan out the window, go for it.
What I will say, just very, very quickly on that, is I suppose that's where Arsenal's advantage is right now, though. Nobody else has moved in for him. It's like the Šeško and the Gyökeres deal. I know their fans are... I keep getting a lot of shit from Arsenal fans for saying what I'm about to allude to again. I get you want the deal done because Liverpool are getting deals done. But if they're done in the next 2 weeks, Liverpool having them done a few weeks earlier before the players go on holiday will have zero impact. I agree with Arsenal fans that if all their deals get done 2 weeks into the season, the other end of that spectrum, Liverpool have an advantage because they've had a pre-season with some of these players, and that's true. But Arsenal are also in no rush because they're leading the race for Šeško. They've got Šeško. I know there's all these reports of these demands that he's making. Do you know what I find really funny? The Arsenal fans who want Gyökeres and not Šeško, they're believing every single media outlet and by the way, they're allowed to. They're believing every single media outlet that's talking about the wage demands and the buyout clauses like it's gospel. But yeah, if those same media outlets turn around and say something negative about a player they like, it's media's bullshitting, brother. I love how we as football fans work. We're beautiful, but I don't think they're in any rush yet. I don't think they're any rush to just bow down to the first asking price that the club set, like this Chelsea example, because they're actually leading the race in this case. There's no one else even really linked to Rodrygo yet, only Arsenal. I do think he's an excellent player. I really do. But I want to do a fictional football question here, and I want to throw this to you first, Kojo, on this potential deal, because right now it's reported by the Portuguese press and CNN over there Plus, Miguel Delaney has said an initial offer has been made for Gyökeres. We've seen the links now to Rodrygo. Let's live in a world for a moment where Arsenal make those signings. Fiction or football, Arsenal signing Victor Gyökeres and Rodrygo still isn't enough to win the Football League. The Premier League, sorry, not Football League, Premier League.
Why you gotta do that to me, Tez? Huh? Why you gotta do that to me, Tez? Look, I honestly, I think it's football. You know, I think it takes them over the league. I think it can take them over the league. I think Rodrygo is an amazing player, first and foremost. I think you can't underplay when someone plays for Real Madrid and plays it for several years. He's made over 120, I think over 120 appearances. That is not a shoddy player. That is somebody who is a staunch player who's only 24, by the way, right? And it's not like he's not scoring goals or getting assists, right? Last season he was at 15. I mean, last season I think he was at 11 and 7. Right, and we've seen before that he was at 15 and 7 as well. So this is somebody who not only has great play in terms of being in front of goal, but also is actually a team player. Right, when I see Rodrygo often playing, the work that gets done with Rodrygo is the runs. It's the runs that he makes that open space for other people. So I can see this person opening up Arsenal to taking them over that line, because someone like Gyökeres as well too, sufficing that he hits the ground running. This is a goal scorer, someone who's aggressive. I think it's somebody that Arsenal have lacked. I wouldn't mind him at Chelsea with the kind of aggression that he plays with. He almost, when he's running, he's almost bullying people when he's running. I like that. You know what I mean? And so for me, I think that kind of profile Arsenal have been missing for a very long time. Somebody who can take the ball by the horns out front. You need that player that sometimes goes, you know what? I don't mind having a half chance. I will take man on. And I'll do my best and score this goal in the most awkward way. I don't care how it gets in, but I'm going to get it in. I think Arsenal haven't had that for such a long time. They've had a great player like Gabriel Jesus, who's very cute, wants to twist people 3 or 4 times to make sure they do splits before he scores a goal. Wonderful. But, you need that kind of profile, I think, at Arsenal that is going to be a little bit more gritty. I think that's what Arsenal have missed for a very long time. So for me, this is a football design. I think they take some of the line. I personally think it takes some of the line, personally.
Well, what do you, I'll pass it to Tom, obviously, because Tom, you're a Liverpool fan. Wirtz, Frimpong, Gyökeres done. Massive chance of Guéhi. Decent chance, according to the media, when it comes to, well, some media outlets on Isak. Others saying no chance. If Arsenal do sign Gyökeres and Rodrygo, is it enough to win in the league? Fact or fiction? Football or fiction?
Fiction. I don't think it wins them the league this year. Just because I think that the other teams have improved as well. If we hadn't have got Florian Wirtz and City hadn't have bought Reinders and solved their midfield problem, I'd be 100% football, because that's Arsenal fixing their 2 big problems. So it's now just about how their ceiling goes up, how many points can they amass. But the problem is the 2 teams that, when fit, are ahead of them in my eyes. Or also, one's getting back to full fitness and getting their key player back, and the other one has just added the best number 10 on the planet to a team that hasn't necessarily lost any key pieces, and it's just adding the pieces that they need to that starting 11 that's already won a league title. I don't think that Arsenal are going to be enough to win the Premier League next year. I do think that there's a real chance they win the Champions League, though. I do think there's a real chance to win the Champions League, because Rodrygo and Gyökeres gives them the real knockout football edge that I think, even though they got to the semi-final last year, I do think they lack that difference maker in knockout football at points. But knockout football is very much about individual moments, and a lot of it's about pace and power. Now, Rodrygo and Gyökeres gives that attack a lot more pace and power than Havertz and Martinelli has. Therefore, in those tight, nervy European away games, they have more of a chance. I think that in the league, they'll get close, but not enough. But I think in the Champions League, you'll very easily see them make the final this time around, because they've fixed the problems that I think was just holding them back a little bit. That PSG tie, I know Arsenal fans go on about the fact that we beat PSG in 3 games. Was it 3 games out of 3 on XG or whatever? Well, if you've got players like Rodrygo and Gyökeres who finish chances, maybe you're actually beating them on the actual scoreboard, so they're just XG score. So, stuff like that matters. So I think that Premier League probably just not yet. I just because the other teams have also taken them steps and they just have that winning experience. But I think European wise, I'm really not going to rule them out. I really think that definitely one step further. I could see them get to that final easily.
Sorry, go on, Roy. So I've got this fan in here that like cools the room down, but it's very loud, and I mute my mic while I was about to talk. I better not. If I unmuted it when that was still on, it sounds like I'm inside an aeroplane. Sorry, over to you, Roy. Sorry.
I think this is fiction because a lot of people are sort of brushing over the fact that one of the most important additions of any team this window is the reigning Ballon d'Or winner back into Man City's squad. Like, Man City have Rodri back now, and with last season, personally, I think Pep is probably the greatest manager of all time. But his coaching last season, frankly, by his standard, was horrible. Like, his team was getting beat every week. It was the same stuff, losing in the same way, hogging the ball, getting done on the counter, and defense all over the place. But I think adding Rodri back into this team and giving him Reinders, he's an all-round number 8. He's got legs. He can chip in with goals and assists. He can come back and defend. He can really help out Rodri in that pivot. So his introduction into the team isn't going back into, oh, you're playing on your own because Gundo's got no legs, Bernardo's got no legs, KDB's never fit, blah, blah, blah. And I don't think Pep coaches as terribly as he did last season again. And I think you add Shirky into that, who's one of the most creative players in Europe. He's not going to be Kevin De Bruyne because Kevin De Bruyne he's practically a once-in-a-lifetime footballer with his pace, power, creativity, goal scoring, and everything else he provides. But with Shirky, you can replace a lot of his creativity. If Foden can recreate the season that he had when he won Player of the Year, and hopefully not have a off season like he did last season, that's a huge contribution to their attack too. Erling Haaland back fit because obviously he had time out last season. But the most important thing is just that if Pep's actually doing his thing, like with all due respect to Slot, who's an excellent coach, and Arteta, who's also an excellent coach, none of them can match him. And add Rodri back into the team. I don't know who Arsenal can sign that can topple Man City personally, because I think he'll shore up his defense this year. Rodri back in the team, got more legs alongside him now. You've got creative players and players who can chip in with goals up front now, and hopefully Haaland can stay fit. If not, they've got Marmoush. So personally, I think right now I'd probably have City as the favourites, and that again, that's no disrespect to Liverpool. It's just I know what the coach has done in this league, and I just don't think he'll have a season like last season. I think Liverpool will push him all the way again. Like, I think it would be great for Salah to not have the workload he did last season, where, frankly, it was absolutely ridiculous, the burden he had to carry. But from Arsenal, Gyökeres and Rodrygo, I don't think that topples Man City. And if Liverpool get a striker, I don't think it topples, especially if it's Isak. I don't think it can topple them either.
Especially if it's Isak.
Yeah, if you get Isak, Arsenal have no chance of finishing above.
Oh, I thought you meant us toppling the City. Yeah, that's the part that got me.
This is
no, if you get Isak, you've got a very decent chance.
Where you said fixtures, I was going to say the question was Arsenal signing Gyökeres and Rodrygo still isn't enough to win them the league. You started off by saying fiction, which means you disagree with that. You meant football, as in.
Oh, yeah, football. Sorry, my bad. I don't think it's enough. Let me
I look at it this way, right? I think it is enough to see. This is where, and maybe I'm going to be accused of playing politics here. I think it is enough to win in the league, although that, and this is why the word standards in football, I feel it's been reduced. I think it's been reducted too consistently. Signing those two players plus Zubimendi is a good enough window to go from second place to winning the Premier League. Because if you look at last season, they drew 14 games. Forget what City do. Forget what Liverpool do. If you actually go back and watch all those games, I watched every single match of Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, City last year. I do it every season because of my job. I would say a good 50% of those draws for Arsenal, if they played with Gyökeres, Zubimendi, and Rodrygo in their team and squad, I think they turn half of them into wins. That then puts them much closer to the title of last year as an example. Their points would be much higher than it was, irrespective of what City and Liverpool did. I think they could win the league, but they also might not. I think it's enough to win the league, but sometimes you're good enough. Sometimes you're good enough to win a league title, but it doesn't quite go your way. One, you could be bang on. Rodri could be at tip-top form. Cherky and Reinders are the best out there. And Pep, he is still the better of the three coaches. Coach is the most perfect season. Liverpool, as good as they were last year, but suddenly Isak and Wirtz are delivering on another level. And again, they just outshoot and outscore Arsenal over 38 games. It doesn't mean Arsenal have done bad business, right? And that's where it's going to be so intriguing to see. But all three of these clubs are looking like they're going to have brilliant summers. They're going to have excellent teams going into the start of the season. And this is what's crazy. All the Arsenal fans that are saying, give me that win now striker to win now. I still think, I would remember watching this scene in the David Brent movie, this follow-on from The Office. And he's in the room with a counsellor and he says, I'm going on tour and hopefully I'm going to get a record deal. And she said, well, what happens if you fail and you don't get a record deal? And obviously, David Brent, if you don't understand about David Brent, you might not get this. He went, well, failure is not an option. And she said, but it is though, isn't it? And it was a really important part of the film because a massive part of the David Brent character is he's playing someone who could have been Ricky Gervais if he didn't make it in his 30s. Someone that's still, I want it still, but is kind of angry and depressed and sad that he didn't get the life that he wanted. You can do that as a football fan. We need to buy a win now. We'll go on and win the league. There's a chance you have the perfect summer you want and still don't win the league. And not because Arteta's crap, just because Pep and Slot do better, right? And that's the element for me about that question that I like is I don't think it's a black and white yes or no answer personally. Although right now, irrespective, even if they sign those two players, I'm still putting Liverpool as favourites. I actually think both Liverpool and Arsenal, though, if they all have good summer windows, I think they both finish above Man City next year. I don't think City will get back to the peak of their powers under Pep. Yeah, I think they'll still be a very good team. They'll still be in the top three. But if they all have the summers they're expected to have, I think it'll be Liverpool followed by Arsenal followed by City next season.
I don't think you can even underplay how much. Sorry, bro, go for it.
No, go on.
I was going to say, I don't think you can underplay how much KDB actually made Man City the team they actually are. Like I know we talk about Rodri all the time, right? But this KDB person only needs to play 15 games a season and come in for those 15 games. And it's not just about him scoring or assisting. It's in the vital games where you think to yourself, they ain't got a chance. The team is probably beating them maybe 1-0 or whatever. They ain't going to come back. They throw him on. He gets those extra points. So for me personally, I don't think Man City get to necessarily, I could be wrong. And I'm going to have to come over here and apologize in a couple of months' time, right? I don't think they get back to the same level that they actually are because they're going to have to change the way they play. KDB is like an elite player, one-off type of player who can pass the ball from the center to the corner flag with ease. I don't know. He's a different kind of player, you know? And so that makes the team a completely different team. I do think Arsenal I think Arsenal, their only issue, like I said, that's why I think Rodri specifically as well makes a difference because he's been in a winning team before. And you can't underplay a mentality. Like when you play football and you play with certain players, when you play them, they will tell you before they start the game, I don't feel good about this game. I'm not really sure if we're going to win this game. Them kind of players they're always a problem to you because when the game turns and it goes not against you, they're the ones that always don't do the best kind of footballing. But when you've got someone like Rodrygo who's played in a winning team before, has won trophies, that's a mindset thing. So it's not just he's a good player; it's a mindset thing which has to elevate other people around you. That's why I think that you can't Martinelli. And you put on that left-hand side, like you were saying, they don't even compare because they haven't won anything per se. They've won an FA Cup. Don't get it. I'm not going to put that down on them. But you know what I'm saying? Like the level of what Rodrygo has brought to the table is completely different. And I think Gyökeres too, being as somebody who, like I said, is a bully up front a little bit. You know what I'm saying to you? It's a bit more aggressive. When the team is pressing and you have someone like that can press and bully a defender, that only stokes you up as a player as well. So I think that's what Arsenal have always needed. It was always cute. It was always pretty with Arsenal. I just need that. I think those two there make a massive difference. Now the question is whether they actually get Rodrygo. You know, if they can actually get it over the line and they're serious about that, that's a different story.
It's very true. This is Terry Pep has described last night in an interview that Rodri is not fully fit. He's playing 20 to 30 minutes. And look, listen, Van Dijk came back, and if people remember rightly, I think his first 4 or 5 games, he looked amazing after his knee surgery. Then he probably had a 12-month period where he wasn't quite at his levels and people said he was finished. There's something like that. He started well when he came back.
His first season back was dead good, and then because he played so much, his second season he was so off the boil.
Yeah, so it's one of them things. But but Van Dijk came back and was very, very good. Listen, I ain't wishing this on him at all. They've got to be careful, because what is also very common at elite level sports is a recurrence or the other knee goes. And this happened to a number of players. Callum Wilson was one. Anderson at Man United was another.
Wirtz had 2 ACLs on different knees.
Wirtz has had it. I want to say, not Kai Havertz. Somebody else was in my mind then. It was a Man United player, Alessandro Martinez. And yes, he's more impact based, but there is a theory, and it's backed up. I've watched a lot of this stuff on Joe Rogan's podcast when he has experts on that say that even in the recovery process, the strong leg can become weakened because of the extra pressure and work you put through it, and then you can come back, and it can just be. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. So, but what's that you need to do is using sparingly. I don't think they can just throw him in and go, there you go, because Rodri was 90 minutes every week, twice a week, all the time. That may not be, again, defenders, you can get away with that a bit more, because defenders do less work than midfielders are up and down the whole game. So they've got to be very, very careful with Rodri. Plus, and this is also part of my train of thought, is the World Club Cup. And this could be the one thing that hurts Chelsea next season. And only because it's unprecedented. Nobody knows what the start of the season is going to be like for Chelsea and City with no pre-season. Now, people go, but World Cups and Euros, yes. But most of the best players at most of the top teams are at the Euros and World Cup. So all of them have disturbed pre-seasons. It evens things out. We have never seen this where clubs are playing like the international teams and there's going to be no pre-season. So we have no idea whether this makes Chelsea and City start faster and fall off, start slow and never recover, or has zero impact and they're just as good. So there's all these little things I think to factor in when it comes to Man City. And I think that's what gives Arsenal and Liverpool, when you are splitting hairs between the best teams, the advantage over them going into next season. But Arsenal have got to get the players signed. Otherwise, I do think City will overtake them. They're all going to be good, though. Super chats here I want to go to. First one says, this is interesting. It's not a super chat from a member, but it says there is still a 10 million euro gap between Arsenal and Leipzig for Benjamin Sesko. Arsenal are seeking to do a deal in installments, but currently comes to around 70 million. What's so mad about this? I mean, Delaney has also said they've put a bid in for Gyökeres. What I'm so intrigued about when it comes to this story is the fact that it still feels like there's no clear, definite player they're going for.
Do you think the players know? Do you think Sesko knows he's option one, or do you reckon Arsenal are just keeping everything to the chest until we make the decision at the very end?
I think they've told both camps, you're number one, the other guy's backup. I think that's how they've done it, which is how most guys do it with the lady and the side piece. And I'm sure in your world, Cody, you had a lot of those conversations with people about the dating world, but that's what a lot of people do. They'll tell both parties or all three parties they're number one. The others are just the side chick or the side guy. I don't know what the expression is for the side version, the male version of that. I've never had that conversation. Side man. All right, there we go. So for me, it's like, yeah, I think they're telling them both that. The one thing that isn't clear is if they get an agreement on everything with both clubs. I'm still not 100% convinced in either direction. Right now, I'm 60-40 Gyökeres they'll go for. But that 40% is still a good chance in life. Do you know what I mean? This here from Wayne, he says, Rodrygo over Leao all day long. Leao just not that good.
Leao's good, but Leao's not as consistent as Rodrygo. Leao, if you can get Rafael Leao at his very best, at 100%, I'd say he's probably better than Rodrygo at 100%. But the likelihood of you getting 100% Rafael Leao on a consistent basis, no, you're not getting that. There'll always be something with Leao which stops it. And especially when he comes to the Premier League, where I don't think he's going to be given the same freedom that he's given at Milan to not track back. I just don't think you'll be maximising Leao over here.
Yeah. I would take Rafael. I would take Rodrygo over Leao, definitely. Would Morgan Rogers be a good option for Arsenal? Yes.
Yeah. I think that there's an argument to be made that depending on who Arsenal buy, because like when they link with like Hassel or something, If Arsenal don't buy a more traditional attacking left back, Rodgers might be the smarter bet just in terms of structure, because somewhat the left back tucks in to midfield like Lewis Skelly does, and then Rodgers is a lot more adept at standing out wide and operating out in wide areas, whereas Rodrygo, I've not seen it on the left, should I say. I know we can do it on the right, but I've not seen it on the left where he's comfortable at standing out wide and creating from the touchline, whereas I know Morgan Rodgers can do that. So there could be an argument to be made there that just makes a little bit more sense structure-wise.
It makes sense. The Toxic Gunner here says, cool, Tom, you might think it's funny, but what if Arsenal do sign a left winger striker and then get Madueke? Also, if talks are starting at 50 million, you'd assume it would be less by the time the deal happens if it does.
If Arsenal sign Rodrygo, Gyökeres, and still sign Madueke, I still find signing Madueke funny because I don't think it makes sense. Not when you've got Ethan Nwaneri there, who Arsenal should be looking to do everything they can to maximise, because I think he's a brilliant footballer. And if you can have him when you need to rest Saka going on the right and when you need to rest Odegaard getting in the middle, I think that's a better use than buying Madueke and shoehorning Nwaneri into being a midfield backup. I think you limit them. So just because they've got Nwaneri, who I think has got better potential than Madueke, and is better at certain things already than Madueke, I'd find it funny if Arsenal spent 50 million quid on him. Especially if they buy the left winger, because then the argument, well, he can be the left winger as well. That goes out the window because you bought the left winger. So what now?
Yeah. Robert here, this was to our conversation earlier about Sancho. It says, take a cut is easy to say, but you don't know why they don't want the cut. It's a job. You will take a pay cut it just because you like your job. So why? It's a really good point. And that's the one thing I would say. I have spoke about this before with other players, and I was listening to John Obi Mikel speak about, he was talking about an African. Again, I'm going to say what he said. I think he said in African culture. I'm not sure if it's the same in every country in Africa, but I know this exists. A lot of my friends who are Nigerian, I've got a lot of Nigerian friends I grew up with that are like, the issue with marrying a girl from the same culture is suddenly my money ain't my money weren't my money anyway. I had to give it to like aunties, uncles, brothers, and sisters. Now I'm spreading my money out further, right? And I always remember laughing, going, that's one. You do this when you grow up around with so many different cultures. You sort of compare things, and you're like, I like that from your culture, but I hate that. I don't want to do that bit. So you're right that certain players, you don't know culturally what's going on. You don't know the standings of a family. Jadon Sancho might be putting 2 or 3 cousins through private school. He might be supporting, and that is, he might have charities that he gives to, therefore cannot afford in the short term to take that pay cut because he's got to pay out for it. So that element is fair. And I think that, and he never has to share that with anybody because that's completely and utterly private. It's a really good point there, Robert. A really good point indeed. Obviously, one of the other stories that's circulating is Man United preparing their second bid and the public side of it for Mbeumo. It's actually been 3 weeks since the first bid. Sorry, 3 weeks since the decision was made for him to join United. We have one official bid publicized since then, but nothing else. That's expected to go through. United is still leading the race, but we had one of the viewers send in a fiction or football question on that I wanted to pose to you all. It says, Mbeumo, fiction or football, Mbeumo will outscore Garnacho and Rashford combined next season.
Where's Garnacho playing? Where's Rashford playing? Sorry,
I don't know.
You got to consider where they're playing at this point.
If Rashford's playing in La Liga, then no, because Rashford will do really well in La Liga because of the league. But if Rashford was playing, let's just say for argument's sake, Rashford stayed in the Premier League at whoever, I'd say yes. I'd say it's football. He'd outscore them. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think Rashford stays in the Premier League. So on the basis that they both stay in England, Garnacho to Villa and Rashford to wherever, I think Mbeumo outscores both of them. If Rashford, mainly, I'm not necessarily worried about Garnacho suddenly becoming a goal scorer, but if Rashford moves to like a Germany or a Spain or an Italy or something like that, if Rashford moves abroad, then no. I think Rashford and Garnacho combined outscore him on that basis.
Yeah, I think this pretty much comes down to Mbeumo against Rashford.
I should have just said that. Garnacho's going to be doing. Garnacho's 3 goals aren't going to be much, are they?
Yeah, then it might top them over the head, but it comes down to Mbeumo against Rashford. As in, Rashford's proven he can score 30 goals in a season if, like, when he's on form. He can score a lot of goals, and he's proven he can outscore Mbeumo as well. But I think if, obviously, this is very dependent on where they're playing, but let's say Mbeumo goes to United and settles in really well. Amorim's getting the best out of him. Rashford goes to a team, he's really settled. Garnacho goes to a team, he's really settled. I think Rashford and Garnacho is too much. I think he might be able to outscore Rashford alone, maybe by a couple of goals, but also I wouldn't be surprised if Rashford outscored him. Because Rashford, like I said, Rashford's proven he can score 25, 30 goals a season, like he did under Eric Ten Hag. So I would say, yeah, it's very dependent on where they're playing. But assuming they're all settled equally and they're all being platformed equally well, I think both of them's too much. He'll definitely outscore Garnacho 100%. Rashford, 50-50. But based on history, I'd back Rashford to outscore him. Because I don't know if Mbeumo can get 20 league goals again. Like, there's not many players who score 20 Premier League goals in back-to-back. Like, you're talking Salah, Haaland, Harry Kane, Isak. Like, we're talking world-class level forwards.
This, I don't have a dog in the fight.
You know what, right? I'm just looking at the numbers, though, what's being said. If we're looking at just league goals here, Garnacho's only scored 16 league goals in his entire career. So Mbeumo last season outscored his entire career's worth of goals. So I think it's a fair bet. That's a fair bet to go that Rashford in the last 2 seasons has only scored 13 league goals. So combined for the last 2 years for Rashford and Alejandro Garnacho's entire career, you are only looking at 29 league goals. Mbeumo scored that in his last 2 seasons. So it's an interesting bet. I might go to a bookmaker's and go, what would your odds be on that? League goals only. Yeah, like league. I might request the bet and say, what would the odds be? Because there's always a chance. I think where they go depends. Again, if Rashford ends up in Germany, if Rashford ends up in Italy or France, I think he could score 30 league goals there. I just do. I just think
if you put Rashford in the Bundesliga, he'd look back to his best, because the Bundesliga is just made for players like Rashford, players who are quick and dynamic when they want to be. Rashford would kill certain Bundesliga fullbacks.
Yeah,
Rashford would be really good in Spain as well, although I don't know which team in Spain would take him like that. But if he goes abroad, I don't think it's a smart bet, because he's got the ability to score a boatload of goals in like a France or a Germany.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, man. I am thinking about this Mbeumo deal. I just need it. I'm not one of these guys that's like, I need it now. Don't you guys feel like the transfer market just being held up by a few things? Like, I feel like the Mbeumo deal is holding things up because you've got Spurs and Arsenal, Newcastle that are still waiting in the wings should that deal fall through, which means they're not going to push forward with Semenyo's, with the Madueke situation that we've mentioned. You've got Arsenal with Šeško and Gyökeres. United are not moving. We're inquiring, but not moving forward because we're waiting to see what Arsenal decide to do because we still want Gyökeres. If Arsenal get Gyökeres, United move on to somebody else, and we'll have to move quicker because it's likely that another side comes in and snaps up Benjamin Šeško quickly, which limits the market. I don't know about you guys. Do you feel like everything feels like it's a little bit sort of bottlenecked at the moment and nothing's kind of getting through? Because it just seems to have slowed down the last 2 weeks after what was a really frenetic start. And it just seems to have gone, like, died a death a little.
Yeah, I think that was going to happen, though. It had a frenetic start because there was a new tournament that teams had to get players in for, and a lot of the good players who probably would have had transfer sagas, a lot of them went in that period. So now it's a case of teams are just trying to figure out exactly how they're going to play it out, because the teams that are in this competition aren't trying to do any deals. They've got bigger things to focus on. Other teams were caught in that whirlwind, so had to do business like at my club. So half our signings were forced to be done as quick as they were because of interest from clubs in the Club World Cup. I think you were always going to have a slow period at this point in the transfer window. It'll pick up around July 1st when a lot of clubs' new financial years hit and they have a clearer standing of where they want to be financially. That first week of July, I expect to see a lot of movements. And I also think, just on a positional level, the moment the first striker goes off the market, it'll be a domino effect. And a lot of deals start moving a lot quicker for strikers. because teams are going to start going, I've got to get it done now or I won't get anyone. And I don't want to be going to a season without a striker type thing. So I think the striker market especially will be one that gets done dead quick in like 2-3 weeks, where all of them go off the market at the same time. But I think most clubs in general just wait until the start of July and figuring out exactly, where they want to be at that point.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we're still early, June is still early. I mean, this is probably I know we're getting early and early these days, but this June is early time for business to be even getting done. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still a traditionalist of the old school. July is that time where the transfers are getting done. So, but to be honest, I think teams are being a bit more cautious too, right? Financially, you got to look at it as well. One aspect. Number two, okay, as well. This Club World Cup also, actual season hasn't actually ended as of such. Some clubs are still playing, right? So you wanna focus on that particular championship as well. But for me personally, I think people are starting to put their tentacles in the players that they're trying to work deals for. So I think you'll see an onrush. Probably July, maybe even coming to the middle of July. I think you start seeing an onrush of transfers. They've done the working underneath. They've done the talking to the player. Maybe got some contracts in place, and then it's like, let's make sure we've got our finances in order to make sure we're actually able to buy the players we need to buy. So I think we'll see in mid-July. July we'll start seeing more of the transfers coming quick because people have done the work already. June is still early. I mean, talking about transfer, I'm like, June is well early for these transfers. But hey, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I do. I think I do get some of the frustrations people have, and they want more to be done. But I do think there's also a slight overreaction. Certain things. Why haven't we sold more players? Why haven't we bought more players? Well, that's what everyone's trying to do. And yes, as you said it backstage, Tom, Liverpool have got 2 done. What a third that's going to happen? But 2 of those 3 teams that are at the Club World Cup, if you hadn't have acted, would have signed them for the Club World Cup. So you had to get them done early as an example. You were almost forced. Your hand was sort of forced in that regard. Because Leverkusen would have loved to have dragged the Wirtz deal on into the summer, but they weren't able to do it because the circumstances didn't go that way. And one of the things that I didn't even think about till this year, and I was even thinking about with Mbeumo, we're obviously going to give him a big pay rise. As long as we're not at any risk of losing him, wouldn't it make more sense to get the deal closed like 3 or 4 weeks, 5 weeks after he says he wants to join? So that saves us. I mean, if you go by the quoted amount of salary that the Newcastle journalists say we're paying him, that saves the club 1.1 million quid in wages. Why would, if we're not at any risk of losing him, why pay him that salary as opposed to Brentford paying him? There's all these, and this is what I think goes on. That's not the reason why every deal was slowed down, but I view it that's a reason. There's also one that's always discussed by the agents and the journalists. A lot of the players go on holiday and do not want to be bothered and say they are not making a decision so they get back. And if they're away for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, what's a club meant to do in that time? Sign someone else because they're not getting a response from their main target. I think this is where there's so many permutations. And I also think as well that the domino effect, there's a few deals that kind of hold up the market, because once a player or 2 go, the market becomes a little bit more fragile because we better get someone because we're going to run out. There's 7 targets that are in our ballpark, 3 are gone. We better start motoring. It has a knock-on effect. I just think people have got to be a little bit more relaxed. And let's wait and see. Gents, what was this here say? Arsenal are preparing to table a fresh bid for the Sporting star Victor Gyökeres as early as tomorrow. The Gunners will put forward a bid worth 70 million. Listen, if they get him, I hate it and I love it at the same time. I hate it because I want him. I love it because I'm not going to lie. I need someone to stop Liverpool winning number 21. Like for me, and it can't be my club. My club's nowhere near it. So there's a silver lining in there somewhere. Look, boys, Kojo, thank you. A brilliant debut on the show. Roy, great to have you back on. It'd be brilliant to see you on here again in future, my friend. And Tom, I know you're here regularly, mate, but always appreciate the support. I want to thank our viewers, everyone who's hit the like button, to all the new members on the show today. Welcome. The super chatters, love you to pieces. We're back with more content later. This is going to redirect you to A-listers, so go and support that. Until next time, people, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you all again very, very soon. Peace.